Alright, because we're on the run up to Halloween, I thought I'd do another skeleton-based tutorial. I've already done a detailed, more towards the realistic skull, front-facing, on a previous tutorial. But if you're after something a little bit more straightforward and a bit simpler, maybe a bit easier, then I'm going to show you some of the basics, and they can actually help you towards the more complicated version as well. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure that you press the bell notification next to the subscribe button, and that way you can be guaranteed to get all of the notifications for all of my videos. So the first thing I'd need to do when drawing the skull, I'll just show you some of the brushes that I'm using. So I'm using the 6B pencil. I'm on a grey rather than the dark black. I'll turn the size of the brush up, but I'm not having it on full opacity either. I'm sort of on a faded back version. So I'm going to draw a circle first. Doesn't have to be perfect, as long as it's not an egg shape, and you can see that roughly it is like a circle. That's fine. I'm going to draw a horizontal line at the bottom of that circle. Again, as long as it's not off at an angle, then it doesn't have to be perfect. It's only there as a guide, and we will get rid of most of it later anyway. I'm then going to draw like a rectangle at the bottom of that circle. So it almost goes to the edge of the circle, but not quite. Just make that a little bit clearer for you. Then we're going to step it in like this. And I'm going to draw another line across. And then halfway between there and there and there, we're going to do a line down, like so. We'll just do like a 45-degree angle there. And then I'm going to just join up there as well. So that is most of where your shapes are going to go. And the first thing I'm going to do is start to identify where some features are actually going to go. So the nose, you might be surprised to learn, is actually going to go on that line here. So the bottom of it is going to be, obviously we've got a center area, so the bottom of it is going to be relatively flat, and then it's going to go up like so to like a rounded sort of teardrop shape that's just flat at the bottom. Next thing we're going to do is identify where the eyes are going to go. So we can just add a couple of dots on either side for the corners. Pitch it slightly that way, so slightly leaning towards the left, slightly leaning towards the right. We can then have a slight curve either side that again is coming downwards, and then another curve that comes lower than that point, so that this line is then coming downwards. That's going to help with the overall position of everything. Next thing you need to do is take this corner and that corner and curve it up to that corner, like that. Then from here, we're going to just take it up, not quite to the edge of the circle, but point it up, and then we can just hook it back in at that point as well. Then we're going to take it straight up, and then we can have it coming in like that as well. Then on this line here, we can blend it into that corner, like that. I'm going to do a bit of a curve like there, and then we can have a bit of a curve for the chin. So I'll do the lines quite thick because this is a basic version. It might have gone a bit wonky, but it doesn't matter. Top of the teeth are going to be slightly curved. And we're going to bring it down. I'm just going to map in where the teeth are going to go at the bottom, so that's going to be curved the other way. That's where we're going to block in all the teeth. We're going to have a center area just like that. It may well go a bit at an angle at the sides for the teeth, but we don't need to worry too much about that. There will just be a little bit of a gap here and here, so we can add those in if we want. But already we're getting towards the kind of shape, so we'll go back to the circle, we'll just pinch it in a little bit there, and then we'll take it roughly up, and then we'll take it across the top. Now, getting this right is a bit of practice, so it might be your circles are a bit big, and you might end up with a really bulbous top of the skull. You just got to play around with those forms until you get it right. We'll add a bit of shading just to start to make it look a bit more like it's supposed to. So the eye sockets and the nose don't look right until they're shaded in a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in just a little, turn the size of the brush down. I'm going to get the gums into the side for the teeth. So we'll start off with some really close together and narrow curves for the teeth at the top, and then as they get more towards the center they'll get wider and bigger. I'm not worried about the placement or the number of teeth so much, as long as it looks kind of right. Again, narrower at the bottom so it's the inverse, what we did at the top, and then slightly wider in the center, and then squashed together and narrower as it goes off there. Now these lines are going to come down roughly. It might be that the center ones take a bit more center stage. It's up to you. Likewise, these ones are going to go up to the center like that. So already you've pretty much got the skull shape. So if you wanted to add a bit more refinement, you can go in and start adding some shading into the side. So imagine where the light source is going to come from. So let's shade it in from the one edge where it's more in shadow. Again, this bit will generally be in shadow on both sides. Draw a line there, shade it in a bit. Shade it in a bit, certainly on this part of it. But to be honest, most of it. You even add some shading onto the side of the teeth, because they will go round as well. They have a curve to them. Let's turn the size of the brush up. Let's get some shading in here. In fact, let's get rid of some of the guidelines so they don't confuse us. Tidy up a little bit. This is just a rough drawing, so I'm not going to get too precious about every fine detail. Like I say, I've done a more detailed tutorial. If you want to find out how to do a more detailed version, I'll talk you through a bit more. But if you just want the sort of basics, then this is how to construct a more basic version. Obviously there are more cartoony versions out there, but if you wanted something that's approaching a bit more realism without spending a massive amount of time on it, then hopefully this is helping. So the center of the bridge of the nose would point up, so if you've got the light coming from one side, you might have a bit more shadow here, and that could go all the way around the edge of the nose, even as far as down to the gum. So it could be that you get shadow on this side as well. Again, leave a light that goes around the eye socket like that, so we don't shade right up to the line. You might have a bit of shading that goes across the bridge or the eyebrow. What you might find is between the gaps as well, you might get just a suggestion of a bit of shadow in there. Don't be too heavy-handed with it, it's just a little bit. Maybe the same coming down from those ones as well, just from the gaps. Bit more shading coming into the center there. A bit more here. I'm just going to do a little bit more there as well. Okay, so I'm not going to go really too much further with that. I just wanted to show you some of the basic forms that will help you get to hopefully a slightly better skull drawing without taking it to the nth degree. Now obviously if you zoom back out, you'll see that it looks quite good from a distance. But again, just the basic forms. I think looking at it, just maybe increase the size of the nose cavity. Again, you've got to judge it a little bit by eye. There's some things that, you know, you've got to use your judgment on a little bit. Have you got the size correct of things? That is going to be determined largely by what you think when you look at it. The more you draw it, the more used to it you'll get. But hopefully this will be a bit more useful in terms of getting the basics right anyway. I generally do more complicated, more detailed tutorials on this, but I just thought I'd throw in something a little bit simpler as well. Might be beneficial to people who are perhaps not quite as confident. Like I say, I'm going to do more tutorials like this, more based on the skeleton. Have a look through my playlists. I do loads of different types of tutorials as well, including landscapes, more human body stuff I plan to do in the future as well. Like I say, a massive thank you to those people that are supporting me over at my Patreon page. If you want to learn more about that, there is a link down in the description. Otherwise, please subscribe and I shall catch you back here again. See you later.